Podcast Answer Man, episode number 75.
This show is sponsored by AG Design.
Need a new website, logo, or artwork for your podcast? Visit ageedesign.com/podcast today.
For a 20% discount, be sure to mention the Podcast Answer Man.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Podcast Answer Man. My name is Cliff Ravenscraft, and yes, I know it's been a couple weeks since I released an episode in the feed. Please forgive me. It's not because I have lost all interest in podcasting. By far, that is not the reason why, although I do appreciate some of the funny emails that I got from some of you. But yes, here I am. I promise I'm going to do my best to get back to at least a weekly schedule. In fact, I will tell you there's a lot of things going on. Very exciting. But let me tell you where I've been. Let me tell you where I've been and why I've been gone for so long. Well, first of all, it all started out with the idea that I wanted to really start to retool my website, podcastanswerman.com. And I wanted to kind of redistribute all of my offerings as far as my professional consulting, my equipment sales, and all of those things. I wanted to transition all of that into podcastanswerman.com. For those of you who have been listening for a while, you understand that when I started this business venture out, I started doing all of my business work, all my consulting work under Bitcast Media. And Podcast Answer Man has been a podcast that started out really during the hobby stage of my podcasting, just me sharing with you guys what's going on in my efforts in podcasting. And it was always a hobby level until probably about 20 episodes ago when I started to more think of this podcast as a professional wing of my business consulting. Just to give you guys an example of some of the podcasting answers that you can get from me and some of the services that I provide, but at the same time, still very much sharing with you all the exciting things I'm working on in podcasting, new media, social networking, all of these other things. And, when I first started this Podcast Answer Man site separate from all of my other podcasts over at gspn.tv, when I created this blog, I created it so that in such a way that if you typed in podcastanswerman.com, it would take you to cliffravenscraft.com. And it was a hodgepodge of, Podcast Answer Man episodes and kind of a personal blog. Could have been just a little bit of anything and everything. Well, when I had to get rid of Bitcast Media and that name because of some trademark issues that I've talked about in previous episodes, I decided that I'm just going to do all of my consulting, all my professional work and business-ended stuff under podcastanswerman.com. So today, if you type in cliffravenscraft.com, it's going to forward you to podcastanswerman.com. And with that, I want you guys, if you haven't been there in a while, to come check out podcastanswerman.com because it is completely different. One of the things that I did right off the bat was I started to look into giving myself a new, really sleek, professional-looking site. That's something that I definitely felt was my number one top priority. And I'm very happy to have found these professional-looking themes that you can start off with called Revolution themes. They work great. Well, they're designed for WordPress, but they take your WordPress from a standard default, I look like a hobbyist blogger kind of looking site to professional grade quality sites. And I really like the look and the feel of many of their themes. So I became basically somebody who is available now to basically purchase these themes and to kind of tweak them and make them available to look nice for your sites. It's one of the things that I'm doing. And in fact, right as I was starting to work on podcastanswerman.com, I got a call from one of my existing clients, and he says, listen, I need some help on a web design. I really have been watching you, and I see you tweaking new sites here and there, and you provide links to some other sites you're working on Twitter, and I check them out. And, I'd really like to get something that's a little bit more multifaceted than what I have now, and I'm willing to try this WordPress thing out. And he said, how much would it cost to have a website done to do X, Y, and Z? And he told me all the things he wanted to do. And well, here's the most awesome thing. If you go to podcastanswerman.com, look at the theme that you see there. Click on a couple different pages. You'll see that my theme is pretty standard and stuff like that. And it's pretty much what came out of the box, other than the fact that I don't use a home page. I make sure that when you come to the site, the first thing that you come to are the most recent entries that are on the site, because I wanted to really promote the most recent up-to-date content that we're releasing here. So, but if you take a look at podcastanswerman.com and then look at my client's site now that I've completed it. Now, I just want to let you know my client did all his own artwork. So all the actual banner itself and all the designs on the right-hand side and all the little buttons and banner images that take you to different parts of the sites. Anything that's a graphic image, he pretty much put all that together. However, what I will tell you that I've done is I'm the person who's responsible for creating the color scheme and the layout, the background colors, the navigation color, the navigation bar color, the navigation sub bar color, changing the format of the text, the font of the text, the layout of the site, to where so much that if you go to conceivedinliberty.org, you'll see, well, first of all, if you go to conceivedinliberty.org, he required and wanted and requested a splash screen. Personally, for those of you out there, I'm not a fan of splash screens. I think that it's just an added web click. But when my client wants a splash screen, then I give them a splash screen. That's just what I do. So, but anyway, go to conceivedinliberty.org, click on the splash screen, and then it takes you to the home page of that site. But then what I want you to do is conceivedinliberty.org /home, and then click on any of the pages or any of the categories that are on that site. And what you may or may not notice is that is the exact same theme as podcastanswerman.com. The only thing different is he provided a banner image. I gave him the height and width of the image I needed. He provided that, and I was able to, instead of doing no banner image at the top or header at the top, to putting his header in. And I was able to tweak the colors and take the rounded corners away and put in the sharp, straight edges, and it just gives you an idea. And it's exactly the same thing, but it's all different color. I mean, where everything that's a hyperlink on podcastanswerman.com right now is red. His is, I think it's green, if I'm not mistaken, and it does tie into his theme. And so, you check those out. That just give you an idea of some of the things that I've been up to. And of course, that project took some time, but I'm very happy with how it turned out. But what happened was it took me away from my project of really getting podcastanswerman.com up to date. And not only that, but I've been working on this Podcasting 101 video tutorial series, which the podcasting webinars that I produce have become very popular and got a lot of positive feedback. And so but the biggest question I'm always asked about the podcast webinars is, Cliff, do you plan on recording any of those, so that we can buy the webinar, but we can watch it at our own leisure whenever we have the opportunity. And, I decided if I want to do that, I want to do it and professionally produce it versus, just recording some kind of live session. And so I've been working on that, but right as I started working on that, and I kind of, then I got this project for conceivedinliberty.org. And then right after that, I got another existing client called, and CorvetteChief.com wanted some help putting together a massive video project. I am talking absolutely massive. In fact, if you go to CorvetteChief.com and look at episode number 17, CorvetteChief.com, and look at episode number 17. It took hours upon hours. I'd say I worked no less than 10 hours on that 30-minute video podcast. And it's exactly what the client requested, exactly what the client ordered. It was so much work. And so that is really the reason. And of course, I've been producing content for GSPN.TV, which is, of course, technically speaking, This is a production of GSPN.TV, the Podcast Answer Man. It's one of now 18 podcasts that I produce personally. And just to give you an idea of whether or not I've been producing content, just in case this is the only one you're subscribed to, Stephanie and I just celebrated our 1,000th podcast episode. Yes, that's correct. 1,000 episodes. And if you want to find out more, you can go to gspn.tv. In fact, I'm going to do that right now and find out what episode it is, gspn.tv. And once you're on the gspn.tv site, you can go to, there in the sub-navigation menu, there is the family podcasts. And then go down to the third one down currently in the list is My Crazy Life. And if you look at My Crazy Life, episode number 291. So if you go to episode 291 of My Crazy Life, you'll see that was our 1,000th podcast episode for that we have produced here out of our studio. It's been awesome. Almost 3 years now that we've been podcasting, and to say that we have 1,000 episodes, we were just blown away by. Just to give you some ideas, that's 750 hours worth of audio that we have recorded and produced and released out there. And given the average number of downloads, that's about 3 million podcast episode downloads. Over 3 million podcast episode downloads. So we are just blown away by, what we have accomplished in under 3 years of podcasting. And so a lot has been going on here. And I don't say any of that really to kind of boast about what I'm doing, because I hope you guys understand who I am by now, to know that I try not to be this arrogant, big-headed person, but I just share all of that just to say that's where I've been the last couple of weeks. And I'm so sorry to you guys who are only subscribed to the Podcast Answer Man that I have not been here on a more consistent basis. But let me tell you, I got all of those things out of the way. I've got the conceivedinliberty.org project is done. So that website is created and done. By the way, I've been working on some other stuff too. Many other clients have called who are not existing ongoing clients, but they have called for consulting help on some web projects. It's been a lot of WordPress work. A lot of people say, hey, I'm getting ready to set up a WordPress blog. Can you help me get it set up? And a lot of people have been asking me for that, and I've been doing it. And the best way I found to do it is to get them on the phone with me. And I open up a service that I have that allows me to share my screen with them. It's called Yugma, YUGMA.com. And I use Yugma to share my screen with them. And so I log into their GoDaddy account. We get them on a GoDaddy account set up, and then we set up their FTP account, and then we install WordPress, and then we install their theme. And while they're on the phone with me, while they're looking at what I'm seeing on my screen, I'm tweaking and adding and showing them how I'm doing these things. And then they say, oh, and I'd like to do this, and I'd like to have this there. And they're telling me as we go along, what it is they want next. And they just have been paying me by the hour to do that. And that has been a lot of work that's come in. And so I'm thankful for that as well. And but all of those things have kind of, settled, the dust has settled a little bit. And so just this past week, I finally got time to finish my own web project. My very own web project at podcastanswerman.com. So go there now if you have an opportunity and check out, and you'll see that I feel pretty confident that this is, the look and feel that I'm going to stick with for quite some time until I get tired and bored of it and change it again. But a couple things you'll notice is that it's a very simple, very clean theme. It's not cluttered with a lot of stuff like some other themes are, and especially like my old theme was. I love these little buttons at the top. There's a little envelope that if you click on it, of course, you can just send an email directly to me. There's an RSS icon up there on the top in the header area. And of course, that will take you to the, it takes you to one of the main RSS feeds on the site. As far as there's a comments feed as well. Everything is set up exactly the way I want to have it set up. And what's really cool is that now it has been stripped of all the personal blogging that I used to do, all the really I was just blogging to be blogging kind of blogs. And so now this has more of my business persona feel to it. And so if you click on About, it talks about who the Podcast Answer Man is and why, what it is I do. There's a contact form on there from people who want to contact me. Equipment sales, it's got the list of my packages that I suggest that are most commonly purchased for the equipment sales that I do, as well as below the list of packages, it has the equipment that I currently use, at least since the last time I updated that, which needs some updating because I got some new equipment in I'll be talking about in future episodes. Training webinars, of course, there's a page there talking about the webinars, what they all are, describing them, when they are coming up, and all the other services that I have available. And you may be surprised. Check it out, and you'll see some of the services that I provide that you may not be aware of. And then, of course, in the sub navigation bar, there are some categories on the site. And of course, the number one category is the show notes to this podcast. So if you click there, it'll show you just the posts on the site that are show notes for these podcasts. And then I'm going to start doing more blogging professionally for podcasting and new media. I decided that that's something I really have been harping on with my consulting clients, but I need to practice what I preach. And so I am very much involved in the new media, social media, technology end of things, and I really want to start blogging a little bit more about my passions and what's going on in this area, kind of the stuff in between the podcast or stuff like that. And so what I'll do is I'll probably take that and as things come up, I'll kind of blog about them either in the tech tips section of the site, which if you go there to podcastanswerman.com, you see tech tips. And those will be like screencast tutorials or little notes here and there. Maybe I answer an email and it's something I could just post the question and answer to and stuff like that. And then what I can do is I can come to the podcast and say, hey, I recently I answered this question, this question, and this question. Of course, all those were posted on the blog, and I'll put links to the individual posts and the show notes to this podcast episode, all that good stuff, And of course, I've been following a lot of new media news, things that are going on in social networking and new media. I've been talking a lot about my iTunes iPhone application submission, which I'm going to record a whole separate episode on that. I'm not going to talk about it in this one, but I've been blogging about my experience there in the new media news, because what's happened to me has become news. Also, I blogged about the brand new Microsoft ads that hit the stands out there, and also blogged about the iPhone the iPhone power adapters that are being recalled and why they've been recalled. And so basically just been pretty much taking a little bit more of a proactive stance on getting the word out in the area of new media news. So I want my site to become more of a go-to place than just being a landing page for all my show notes. I want it to be more of an interactive place. And of course, I really encourage your comments. In fact, if you leave a comment, you kind of get prominently featured on the right-hand sidebar of our site, where it shows the 10 most recent comments and who left those. And so if you put your an HTML link in there, when the people click on your name, once they get into the comment area, they'll be able to link back to your site. So it's a great way to get people to kind of see your face and stuff like that. So that's what's going on. I'd love your feedback on the Podcast Answer Man site. It is definitely different than what I had before, and I'm pretty happy with it. And if you're interested in a podcast redesign of your WordPress theme and stuff like that, you can call me for a price on that. And if that doesn't work out for you, of course, we do have a wonderful sponsor who does podcasting and website designs and stuff like that, that he goes beyond the WordPress stuff. He does so much more. Evan AG over at agdesign.com/podcast, 20% off if you mention this show. So that's what's been going on. That has been what's going on. Now, before I go any further into any other topics, which I have so many topics, you can imagine, since it's been so many weeks since I've come to you, I have so many topics to share with you. I'm going to record several episodes over the next day or so here, and then kind of have them built up so I have something released to you on a more consistent basis. But I want to talk to you about an email that I got in today that is a very good email. And I'm going to go dig that up here right now. So let's pull it up and see who this is from. Okay, so this email comes from somebody by the name of Brian, and he asked me to really try to keep the identity of the person he's working for a secret. So basically what I've done is I've completely gone in here and replaced all reference to the person he's talking about as far as the domain name and the person running for office. And so I've just replaced the name with Joe Smith and even replaced the name of the office he's running for. So it'll all make sense when I read the email, I promise. So let's get this started. I am going to be producing a podcast, he says, which is his first, by the way, for a friend of mine who is running for political office. His website for the campaign is joesmithforcertainoffice.com. Please remember, don't mention this the name of these sites on the air, which of course I've changed for the purpose of reading. He does own joesmith.com, and I feel that his feed should come from this domain, as he will own this domain throughout his entire career. But he will not be using joesmithforcertainoffice.com domain once the election is over. And of course, that is, of course, unless he loses and has to run again. Also, if he does run again, he'll probably get a new Joe Smith for whatever office.com for whatever office he runs for in the future. Right now, joesmith.com is redirecting to joesmithforcertainoffice.com until the election is over. Then he will make joesmith.com his main website. And I'm planning on keeping his podcast going regardless of the election result. So my question is, in the interest of keeping the feed address that we publicize consistent from the get-go, A, how do I generate the feed at joesmith.com when the domain is not quote-unquote active, so to say, meaning that the content will actually be posted on the joesmithforcertainoffice.com page for now? And B, when people subscribe to the joesmithforcertainoffice.com page, how do I get them to actually be subscribing to the permanent joesmith.com/feed? He says, I hope this makes sense to you. This isn't a how to make a feed or what is a feed kind of question. It is more of a how do I put a feed from site A onto site B type of question. And if it matters, we are going to be using Libsyn to host the content and FeedBurner maybe to get all the tags right and for the stats. Any thoughts on that? But I'm pretty sure I will get how to set all that up. I'm just stuck at generating and placing the feed part. Now, there is a lot to answer in this question, and unfortunately, there's a lot to answer via audio that I hope will make sense. So, first of all, I'm very glad I went to the site, and unfortunately, if you go to joesmith.com, I have no idea what you're going to get because I just made that up. But I went to the website that he pointed to for his friend who's running for office. And Brian, one of the things I am so excited about is to see that you are using a WordPress template or using WordPress. That is critical. Just because it's critical because I'm biased toward it. I love WordPress. I think most podcasters out there today are using WordPress, and we just absolutely love it. Now, you were saying that you're considering using FeedBurner to set up your RSS feed and for stats. Well, first of all, FeedBurner stats are horrible. Okay, absolutely horrendous. However, FeedBurner is a service that I do use consistently and I love so much. A lot of other people not too crazy about FeedBurner because it is a third-party service that you're allowing to quote-unquote own your quote-unquote connection to your audience. I'm not so concerned about it. I am very happy to know that now FeedBurner is owned by Google, which is a very large corporation. They understand the importance of podcasters and bloggers, and they understand that, really, Google has a lot to gain from bloggers having, the right RSS feeds set up. And so, I think it was smart of them, number one, to buy it. And number two, I don't think it would be smart of them to do anything that's going to tick off all the bloggers in the world that are using it. So I think we're pretty safe using FeedBurner personally. And so anyway, here's what I would suggest doing. Number one, well, first of all, I noticed you said go to joesmith.com/feed. And I want to just tell you that if I went to your site, and if you happen to have a WordPress site and you click on the RSS feed icon for your site, and it takes you to yourdomain.com/feed RSS 2.0 / or something like that. If it does not say /feed, then you do not have your permalinks set up for the best results possible. And what I mean by that is simply going in to the settings option on your WordPress backend, your dashboard. Go into the dashboard, click on settings, click on permalinks, and then you want to choose custom. And if you choose custom, I suggest always putting / post name /. And that's going to give you yourdomain.com/feed is your actual feed. And it's really not so important for that as much as it is very important that when you do a web post, instead of here's the big problem. Let's just say you're entering your 40-second post into the site. Well, your URL for that post is going to be yourdomain.com/?P=42. That's the default of WordPress, and that just says nothing about what your post is. But if you use this permalink structure that I have suggested just now, then what you want to do, then what your domain would say, let's just say Apple recalls all 3G power adapters. Then your URL would be podcastanswerman.com/apple-recalls-all-3G-power-adapters. And do you know what happens with that when it gets indexed in Google? When people do search for Apple Power Adapter Recall, chances are, of course, the thing is that story's been is going to be blogged by millions of people, or at least probably tens of thousands of people. So chances are I probably won't get up there. But if it was a less commonly blogged about topic, and you put all those keywords that are in your what your article is about in the title of your blog, and that shows up in the URL, that's going to get you better search engine placement in Google. And so, you want to, number one, you want to go in and change your permalink structure. Now, if you go in and you change it to custom, and it breaks your page, and when you go to click on it, it says this doesn't exist. You get one of those errors, page cannot be found errors. Well, then what you need to do is you have to actually change the HT access permissions on your site. It gets a little bit more complicated than that. If you want some help, I can help you. I do some consulting work by phone and stuff like that. Just get in touch with me. I'll let you know how much I charge for my services and stuff like that. But anyway, once you set your permalinks up, then you're going to have better looking URLs, basically. So for you, Brian, who emailed me, right now you're getting all those question mark links, and you don't want those. You want to set that up to have the right Google Juice links. That's going to help you out in the future. Now, here, back to your original question, though. What are we going to do? What are my thoughts? I've given you my thoughts on the stats. Number one, the stats counting is not something to be dependent on. You're going to get better numbers as far as statistics on downloads of your podcast from your Libsyn account, which I think is very good stats, by the way. They do a very good job of tracking your stats. And the reason for that is a lot of people are going to click on and listen to your friend's podcast from the website, not just from the feed. So a lot of people still will subscribe to your friend's website using the RSS feed and putting it into Google Reader or something like that. And they're going to, whenever there's a new post, Google Reader or whatever RSS reading software they use that is not a podcatcher like iTunes, what'll happen is they may just come to the site and they may just click on that link, and it's not going to necessarily give you accurate stats when people click on media in your site versus when they come in via downloaded RSS and stuff like that. So trust me, don't trust your FeedBurner stats. They're going to be way off. However, FeedBurner is great because one of the things you can do is you can take Joe Smith for certainoffice.com/feed, and you take that and burn it over at feedburner.com. Okay. And what you do is, what I would suggest doing is double posting. Any post that you make on his Joe Smith for certainoffice.com site, whatever you post there as a podcast, also post that to his joesmith.com, because eventually you're going to want that content to stay there archived on this one, and you're eventually going to get rid of for certainoffice.com. It's going to go away eventually one day. Maybe you'll shut it down. However, what you want to do is you want to take joesmith.com/feed and joesmith.com, one of those feeds. You're going to want to be able to set that feed to be a FeedBurner feed. And if you go to feedburner.com and put that in, then you can have feeds.feedburner.com/Joe Smith. Well, just Joe Smith, and just call it that. And what you could do is you could go ahead and replace all the places where an RSS feed is referenced on the Joe Smith for certainoffice.com. You could go ahead and update all those to where they will link to the FeedBurner feed that's actually pulling from the other site. So, all that content's pulling from the other site. So right now, if you have Firefox, actually, if you have any browser, go to podcastanswerman.com right now. On the right-hand side, you will see two icons. It says Podcast Answer Man Podcast. Subscribe to receive regular updates regarding podcasting and new media. Right below that, you see subscribe with iTunes. And if you go to the right of that, it says subscribe with RSS. If you highlight over that button that says subscribe with RSS, or you click on it, it will take you to feeds.feedburner.com/PAM, Podcast Answer Man. Now, look up where it's in the header area. It just has the orange and blue text, Podcast Answer Man. And then on the right-hand side of the header area, you'll see three icons: the envelope, the RSS locator, and the comments icon. Now, if you highlight over top of the RSS little white indicator up there, or if you click on it, it's going to take you to feeds.feedburner.com/PAM for Podcast Answer Man. Now, for those of you who are using Firefox, and I think Safari has this as well, whenever you're on a site that has an RSS feed attached to it, it automatically pulls up a little icon, a little orange icon, or maybe blue on Safari, I don't know. But anyway, pulls up a little icon indicating that there's an RSS feed where you can subscribe to this page. Well, if you click on that, it generally will take you to whatever the RSS feed is for your WordPress by default, which would be podcastanswerman.com/feed. Well, it is possible to go into your dashboard and go into your design setting, and then go into your theme editing area of the place where you can go in and edit your theme in WordPress. And if you click on header.php, you can actually change what RSS feed that points to. And so, matter of fact, if you go to podcastanswerman.com and click on the RSS indicator that's up there in the browser on Firefox, you will be taken not to podcastanswerman.com/feed, but feeds.feedburner.com/feed or /PAM. And that is exactly what I designed it to do. So everybody who subscribed using any of the links that are available that I've provided, anybody who subscribed to podcastanswerman.com is going to get the content whatever I send to that FeedBurner account. Now, many of you may have noticed that in the last couple days or weeks, you may have noticed that some episodes that you had already downloaded in the past and listened to and deleted showed up in your RSS feed again. And I know exactly why that is. And that's because when you were subscribed to feeds.feedburner.com/PAM, that I had all of that RSS information coming from gspn.tv/category/technology/PAM/feed. So basically, I was taking the RSS feed from my gspn.tv site, and I used that as the original feed or the origination feed over at FeedBurner to feed all the data out to feeds.feedburner.com/PAM. What I did is when I did my redesign of podcastanswerman.com, see, the thing is everything at gspn.tv is limited to a certain number of episodes for each RSS. And I did not want to limit Podcast Answer Man anymore. I wanted you guys to be able to have access when you subscribe to Podcast Answer Man. I wanted you to have access to all of the prior content that's out there. So what I did is I moved and said, okay, well, and how I've gotten this to work is because every time I post a Podcast Answer Man episode, I post it 3 times. I post it on podcastanswerman.com. I post it on gspn.tv because I do have people subscribe to an all-inclusive feed for GSPN, and so those people will also get every episode of Podcast Answer Man. And also, I post it to my gspn.tv plus member-only site because those people have a gspn.tv plus member-only all-inclusive feed. And so I want to make sure that they get every episode of the Podcast Answer Man. So every time I post an episode of the Podcast Answer Man, I'm posting it on 3 WordPress installations. However, it used to be that if you were subscribed to feeds.feedburner.com/PAM, you were getting the content from GSPN. And that's why, that's of course where you had been, listening, downloading, and deleting the episodes as they go along. But what happened was I told FeedBurner to say, okay, I no longer want you to get the data for this feed from gspn.tv/category/technology/PAM/feed. But instead, I want you to get it from podcastanswerman.com/feed. That's the new original feed address. And I clicked save and it updated it immediately. I went in and I told it to resync all the data, and immediately it quit looking at anything that was at the gspn.tv site. It cleared all of that out of the cache and went and refreshed it all and got all the new data from podcastanswerman.com. And so therefore, the next time your iTunes went and looked for updated material, it says, oh, wow, there's 75 or 74 new episodes. And so that's why all of my prior content popped back up into your RSS reader, even though you had already listened and deleted it all. iTunes, it looked like brand new data because it was coming from a different source. And so technically speaking, they were different posts than the ones that you deleted. I hope that answers your question, Brian. I am available if that does not make sense. I am available for one-on-one podcast consulting work, and I can, if you email me at cliff@ravenscraft.org or cliff@gspn.tv, either one of those will go to the same place. Be happy to discuss with you my rates, and if anybody else out there is interested in getting some help one-on-one, I'm available to do that as well. So with that, folks, I'm going to wrap it up with this episode. Again, thank you for being subscribed, even though it's been a couple weeks. I promise you, now that I have things up and running, that I will be more consistent with my posting. And not just postings for the Podcast Answer Man, which I am going to keep them more consistent, I do promise. However, also I'm going to be more consistent with blogging. So check out the tech tips section and the new media news section over at podcastanswerman.com. Make sure that if you want a website, even if you choose to use me to help you fix your WordPress tweaking, I don't do images, man. At graphics design, Evan Agee is the place to go. We want to thank him for sponsoring the Podcast Answer Man. God bless.